What is going on, everyone? This is Steven from After Hours Video, and welcome back to After Dark. Tonight, we've got a special guest, my friend Carl from Alive Again, a horror haven based in Grand Rapids, Michigan. What's going on, Carl?
What's up, man? It's good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely. Likewise, man. So your store is dedicated to all things horror, from rare VHS tapes and cult favorites to notorious hard to find titles. Tell us just a little bit about everything that Alive Again has to offer. How did this initially begin? Um, how did you end up pursuing this passion with Alive Again?
Yeah, sure. So if you, I mean, obviously you've been there, but for anybody
Absolutely.
watching, listening who hasn't, it's called Alive Again. I'm in Grand Rapids, Michigan, specifically the Creston neighborhood, which is a really cool, like funky kind of area of Grand
For
Rapids.
sure.
And yeah, it's a horror store. And, what I sell is horror movies on all formats. So primarily, I think what I'm known for at this point is probably the VHS collection that I keep at the store. But I also sell Blu-rays and 4Ks, Laserdiscs, Selectavision, Betamax, DVDs, you name it. But then, we also do horror collectibles. So posters and merchandise, books, autographed things. Yeah, if it's spooky or macabre or creepy or weird, there's a good chance I have it in the store or I want to get it in the store if I don't already have it.
Absolutely. And that's one thing I wanted to highlight is that you have such an extensive collection of just everything ranging from VHS all the way on up to 4K, which is just something that for someone that's strongly an advocate for physical media, like I love seeing that. So
Yeah, I mean, that's my big thing is prior to the store, I owned an arcade, and at the arcade, I had a little store up front. And over the years, it started out as like 80s collectibles because, I was born in
yeah,
1980, so a lot of nostalgia for it. But I built a little video store, and it was really just because I collect tapes and I thought it'd be fun. And we would call it the smallest video store in the world, and we called it Alive Again. And it was kind of a pun on, Alive Again, like a zombie, but
yeah.
also again in trying to bring back physical media and keep it alive and make it a thing for people. And that little video store, and I'm not kidding, this thing was like 10 feet by 10 feet. It was tiny.
Yeah.
It got a pretty good following. We had people driving from all over, not to go to the arcade, which wasn't great for the business part of it, but they'd want to shop in the little video store. It was super fun.
That's
So
incredible.
yeah, so we ended up just transitioning fully to that. The arcade was it was a ton of work. I've got kids and a family, and it was just keeping 60 games from the 80s up and running every day was just too much. And my passion
God
really is,
bless.
yeah, my passion's movies, and I'm a collector at heart of all sort, way too much stuff probably. But I just love to surround myself with the stuff I grew up with. And for me, that's 80s horror movies.
100%. I know you and I have talked at the store at nauseum about just our love and passion when it comes to like cult favorites and midnight movies. And that's really, I just figured if we were going to talk about the movies that you and I were going back and forth on, this felt like the perfect collaboration that had to finally happen.
For sure, man. I'm psyched to do it. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, that's my thing is, at the horror store, of course I carry Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street, all the big franchises.
Yeah.
But what I love, and people at the store know it by now, is I love that deeper layer of movies. I like the little bit lesser known, the really campy stuff, the forgotten stuff, the more obscure stuff. I mean, that's what I gravitate towards.
Yeah.
So I think for being such a small store, I've curated a pretty good collection of the weird stuff that you're probably not going to find anywhere else because it's under the radar for most people.
Absolutely. And especially, I feel like that there's been in recent years, there's been a revitalization or like almost like a renaissance of that appreciation for VHS tapes. And I know like you and I go on about it, about like some of the harder to find ones. And I have to say that, when I have had a chance to stop out at your store, like I'm walking away with some gems for sure to add into the collection.
Yeah, for me as a collector, one of my favorite things to collect is specific distributors. I love, some of the really early distributors in the VHS game. So Paragon
Mhm.
and really early media, the white stripe on the bottom media tapes, MCA with the rainbow logo. I personally look out for those things. So I love to find the really hard to find, really early releases, and I try and stock the store with as many as I can find. But like you said, these things have gotten so much more popular in the past few years. I've been collecting them for I never really stopped. I'm 45 now, and I love buying them. But now everybody's looking for them. So luckily, I had amassed quite a few beforehand. But if you were just starting to get into it now, it's a much different game.
Oh, it's and especially, I mean, I've even heard as far as like some collectors getting back into collecting like laser disc, and
Yeah.
that's that I'm not ready to take on another hobby.
No,
Like,
it's crazy, man. I keep a, when I can get them, I have Laserdiscs in the store. Right now, I happen to have a working Laserdisc player in the store, and they're fun. And Laserdisc has a great picture, and it's a pretty cool system. The really weird one is CEDs or Select
okay.
Division discs. Um, I'm the only person I know who has a working Select Division player, and it's terrible. Even when they work great, they're terrible.
Yeah.
But they're fun. It's such a weird little, they were only around for like 3 years. So it's a really weird niche in physical media's history. But that's the kind of stuff I live for, is finding those weird little obscure things like that.
Absolutely. And then just before we kick everything off, I mean, tell me a little bit about like what was your first introduction into like the video store, or like maybe whether it's like local or like bigger names. Was it more like finding out about movies through like word of mouth, or was it just browsing, your local video store?
Yeah, I mean, and again, I was born in 1980. Just to
Okay.
put it in context, because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
talk about movies a lot different than a lot of the people who come into the store who are in their 20s or even early 30s, because I have a whole
Mhm.
different viewpoint on it. I
100%.
grew up in video stores, and it wasn't until I was a teenager before Blockbuster was even a thing. So when I was a kid, it was just independent video stores. That's what we had. I mean, the tanning salon that my mom went to rented tapes in the corner of the tanning salon.
Yeah.
So when she was in the tanning bed for 20 minutes, I would sit there and stare at the tapes on the wall. And as a 12-year-old boy, horror tapes, that's what I gravitated towards, because it was the taboo. It was the thing I wasn't allowed to rent. I grew up in a pretty strict family. I wasn't allowed to rent those things. So of course it made me want them even more. And they always had the coolest covers anyway.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
oh, without a doubt, right? And for better
Yep.
or for worse, sometimes you would grab a movie based on the cover, because we didn't have the internet to look up reviews. You had no way of knowing what was on this tape other than, maybe a paragraph on the back and a cool cover. And sometimes it worked out great, and I found a lot of great movies that way. And sometimes you got totally burned, and the cover did not live up to the movie whatsoever.
I feel
Uh,
like you haven't gotten the full experience unless you've been burned a few times with like kind of some duds, but more often than not, I mean, I'm sure you have to admit, like you're finding these like, long lasting favorites that, you're even revisiting all these years later.
Without a doubt. And I fully believe that every serious physical media collector, if you haven't done it yet, blind buy a film based on the cover. Just do it.
Mhm.
It's fun. And
Yeah.
maybe it won't be your favorite, but you can always trade it into a store like mine, and there's other ones that take trade-ins. But you might find your new favorite movie, and it's kind of fun to do it old school and just read the slip, look at the
Oh
picture,
yeah.
and make your decision. Now, it's tougher. These boutique releases are pricey, and so I get it. But if you can find a deal, I sell a lot of used media in the store too. I
Yep.
take trade-ins every day. I mean, you can find Arrow and Severin releases for 12 to 15 bucks in the store. Grab a cool one you never heard of. It's
Yeah.
fun. I love doing that. I love picking something off the shelf that I don't know anything about and taking it home to watch it.
And I think the best part about, really having a chance to, you know, obviously you and I have very similar tastes in movies. So like to be able to kind of go back and forth with someone that has a deeper love for and appreciation really for like those cult movies or like the video nasties. I know like you and I, can go on and on about them, but there's just something that it's a little bit deeper into cinema and like the darkest corners. I always consider it. So really, Carl is here to guide us through some of the most shocking, twisted, and unforgettable horrors ever to lurk on the video store shelves, and we're diving deep into the kind of films that made you line up at the video store just to glimpse the forbidden section. So before we get started, guys, hit the like button, subscribe, ring that bell so you can step into the forbidden section where the most notorious and legendary tapes of midnight horror await. From deranged killers hiding in plain sight to cursed cabins, unstoppable forces and nightmares that won't let go, we'll explore the films that made video stores feel dangerous after dark. So lock your doors, grab your popcorn, and prepare for a journey to the edge of terror.
I love
So
your intros, man. I gotta tell you, you
let's
got the best intros in the game.
thanks, man. Thank you. Thank you. So listen, I gotta set it up because we're gonna be starting things off with a movie that I haven't revisited in such a long time. And it was really fun to have a chance to check this one out. And that's none other than the Toolbox Murders.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about this film. Where was this for you? Was like this an early discovery, or was this as you were getting a little bit further into horror? Did you discover this cult classic?
Yeah, no, this was definitely one that I found a little bit later, and I don't recall when, maybe high school or early college when I found the movie, but it was another one where I remember seeing the box
Oh
and
yeah,
thinking, well, I mean, that sounds pretty cool, right? Like,
even
it
the
sounds like
title.
great, yeah, for sure. And the movie hits all the key elements that I love, and a lot of the elements that are in all the films that we'll talk about tonight.
Hmm.
I lean towards, the sleazier the better.
Yep,
And
same.
I mean, if it's got gratuitous gore and gratuitous nudity, it's probably a movie I want to watch. And that movie
Yeah,
has both of those things.
yeah, yep,
And I love that for it. Because I think what people forget is, these type of movies, the low budget, the grindhouse films,
yep.
however you want to classify that. And I know it's kind of gotten away from the actual classification of what a grindhouse movie is, but the basic gist of them was, you're going to make a film that's 80 or 90 minutes long, and you got to pack in at least semi-interesting story. And Toolbox Murders, I actually think has one of the more interesting stories of all the films that we'll talk
Hmm.
about today. But you got to pack in the nudity, you got to pack in the gore, you got to have cool kills. They got to be something different. And Toolbox Murders hits all those keys, because a lot of these movies fall into one trick pony, where they
Yep,
have a killer who has a hallmark weapon, and maybe you have to figure out who it is by the end of the movie. Maybe you don't. Most people don't really care. They just want to sit through 90 minutes of blood and guts, which
yeah.
I'm all for. But the Toolbox Murders
Yeah.
has some cool twists in it. I mean, it's got, between the uncle and the nephew, you have some cool twists that actually keep you really engaged in the storyline of the movie, which, for better or for worse, is kind of rare in these types of films.
Yeah. And
Uh,
and you would have to admit, probably this movie, I would say a little bit more so compared to the other films that we're going to discuss. It's a slow burn, but I feel like when it ramps up and goes off the rails, like it's really towards the back half of it where you start kind of piecing things together. It's not what you're expecting. Um, Now, for those of you guys who haven't had a chance to check this film out, so just to give you guys an idea of what this movie's all about before we deep dive into it, is a mass killer stalks an apartment complex in Los Angeles, slaughtering women with everyday tools, your hammer, drill, nail gun, in a string of grisly murders. But when the rampage ends abruptly, the film shifts gears. A young woman is kidnapped, and her brother sets out to uncover the killer's identity. Um, I feel like that this is a film that tackles some really interesting topics because you don't get it really towards the later end of it, but extreme religion
yeah, big.
in a way. And this was kind of, I mean, I would have to say this is probably pretty like rare that they were really tackling this topic in a slasher movie, no less.
Oh, I would 100% agree. And that's one of the reasons that I think this movie, Toolbox, it almost elevates itself out of the grindhouse category, because it
Mhm.
does actually have a deeper storyline that a lot of these movies don't even try for.
For
And
sure.
again, that's not a knock on them. I love that about some of these movies. In fact, one of my favorite things to do is put on an 80-minute mindless slasher. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But the Toolbox Murders, they tackle um, the aspect of family, which actually is a theme that goes through a lot of these movies, oddly enough. But religion is a big one that was, outside of demonic possession or satanic stuff.
Hmm.
Christianity in some of these movies was really not dealt with very often.
No.
And so for them to bring it in with the uncle being, maniacally religious after the death of his daughter, and essentially that's what drives him to do the things that he does. It's an interesting take for a movie that really was never meant to be taken all that seriously.
No, and it ramps up it goes from being, I would say, probably like more surface level slasher elements in the very beginning. It ramps it up because then you have what's following later in the movie is like twisted morality. There's obviously over the course of the entire film, there's like gratuitous violence. And you can definitely understand why this was pushing the envelope as far as slashers of that time. Now, are there other elements that you feel like made this film stand out to you outside of like what we discussed?
Well, I think, again, a lot of these movies, you have to go back and evaluate them in the time that they came out and in the
Hmm.
time that we were originally seeing them. So, and I tell this to everybody at the store, is the internet changed how we watch movies, not just in terms of physically streaming them or collecting physical
For
media like
sure.
some of us do, but in terms of how you think about movies. So, without the ability to have forums where we discuss them, you could take away whatever you had in your life that was relatable or not to that movie. So like I said, I grew up in a fairly strict household. It was a religious household.
Hmm.
So anytime I watched movies like that as a younger kid or a teenager that had religious aspects to it, those movies hit a lot harder because they
For
hit
sure.
a lot closer to home. And Toolbox Murders, it's not subtle about it. I mean, the guy is a total creep, and it's
Yeah.
all based on his religious beliefs. Um, so I think that nowadays people will dissect movies, and they've read a million different opinions, and they've heard all these people talk about it 6 ways to Sunday in forums and whatnot. But
Yeah.
back then, it was you and the video clerk, or maybe you and some buddies, sneaking a cigarette,
Yeah.
talking about whatever you saw last night that you weren't supposed to watch, because we couldn't watch these things. We had to sneak these movies.
Same.
So,
I
you know,
it hold on. Okay, so that it's funny you say that because I feel like you and I can appreciate the it's almost like the hidden allure of bringing these films into the house because you're not supposed to. And I think that there's like a key component about that that really brings us back like wanting more, like you want to discover these movies we've never seen before, or I think it's what keeps us coming back to these horror films to begin with, really.
oh, there's no
um
doubt about it. I mean, the idea of just a black VHS tape in a simple slipcover, and there's something on that tape that is so bad that my parents would ground me if I watched it. Well, now I have to see what's on it. Now
yeah, yeah,
I'll
you're
go any length I
yeah.
can for a guy, I find out what it is. And so, and I'm sure you were the same way, and probably lots of other people. There's no way I could have gotten away with it at my house. But every group of friends has that one friend who's got parents who don't care what they do. And I had a friend in my friend group whose parents really didn't care what we did.
Yeah, we
So
all had one.
yeah, everybody has one. And so
Yep.
that's where we watched these movies. We'd go in the basement of this one's friend's house, and that's where we'd watch them. And it was great. We would rent stuff. We had a friend who had an older sibling who was a clerk at one of the mom and pop video stores. And back then, the mom and pop video stores, they did most stuff, on clipboards.
Yep.
They weren't using these big databases or anything. So it was
No.
really hard to keep track of what was coming and going. So they would rent us movies that we were absolutely not supposed to be renting. And they would just put them in like a Top Gun slipcase so that if we could take it home and have it on the counter. And if a parent walked by, well, we're
It's
watching Top Gun.
very discreet.
But inside
Yeah.
you pull it out and it's, Faces of Death is
Yeah.
actually
The mutual love that we have of Faces of Death, which is one we'll get into later. But yeah, it's funny because we didn't really have that, which is I wish we did. It was more so like finding the right video store that basically didn't give a shit. And you going in there, and I just remember, like I always tell the story, is that I would go there, I'd ride down there on my bike, I'd bring a backpack, I'd stuff as many movies as I could rent in there, and I would go home, and I had to wait till everyone was asleep, and I would have to wait to watch them. And it's like you got the volume down low, but there was just something about it that you're obviously not supposed to. My parents were kind of the same way, and to be able to sidestep around that and be able to tell my friends like, yo, I just watched, Cannibal Holocaust or Texas Chainsaw. There was something really, really exciting about it.
without a doubt. Without
Yeah.
a doubt. And it lends, and that's what these movies are meant for. I mean, that's the whole point of what we're doing even tonight is these are movies for after dark. They were movies that we had to see
Yes.
late at night. They were movies you didn't take, a girl on a first date to go see Cannibal Holocaust. That was a movie you watched late at night by yourself or with some buddies or at a drive-in or
Yeah.
so there is a time and place for these things, and that's what I love about them is these are the after dark movies. They're
For,
behind the curtain movies. They're the
yeah.
movies you don't bring out in public around mixed company.
No, not at all. Not at all. Now, if now say for example you found this movie at the video store back when, would the cover art alone have told you about what's inside?
Well, sometimes yes and sometimes no, and that's
Mhm.
again, that was the problem is we never really knew. Toolbox Murders, the cover, and I should have brought a copy. I don't have one, but um, that cover doesn't do a good job of telling you what's going to be on that tape. It's a cool cover,
Yeah.
but the movie is a much bigger thing than just a dude who uses a different tool out of his box to randomly kill people. That's really not what the movie's about. So
No.
that's an instance where you got more bang for your buck picking based off the cover than the one I always use as an example is Stuff Stephanie in the Incinerator. If you've ever seen that movie, it's got one of the greatest slip covers of all time, and it is a complete letdown based on the slip
Yeah. Oh,
cover.
that's even worse.
Oh, it's terrible. It's got if you don't know it, it's this big incinerator, and it's
Yeah.
this really cute girl in a tiny mini skirt bending over like she's about to go headfirst into the incinerator, and it's like, what could be better?
Yeah.
And it is not. It is a very slow.
Oh my god. Well, at least this one, I feel like the cover art kind of plays it down, and therefore you end up getting this very deeper, I feel like for the time, like a deeper slasher than most movies that were coming out around that time. Now, um, with Toolbox Murders, the opening killing spree sets the tone. How do you feel like that compares to the slower burn that follows with this film?
So I like that because I like a movie that hooks me right away, and I'm
Mhm.
okay with again, time and place. Movies of the late 70s and the early 80s, the pacing was totally different than modern movies and horror
For sure.
movies. Especially, you would get a lot more long lingering shots, slow dialogue, scenes that maybe don't have really anything to do with moving the story forward. And that was just the style of filmmaking back then. What I love about Toolbox is it hooks you right away. You get excitement right out of the gate.
Yep.
And then it takes a step back and it lets you kind of absorb what you've seen. And then it brings you in to the why and what's going on. And you play a little game with the movie of trying to figure out, well, at first we don't know who the killer is. And then once we find out, we don't know why the killer is doing what he's doing. And then they throw twists in. And so I think the pacing of that movie is probably one of the best examples of good pacing of any of the
Mhm.
films we'll talk about today because it sets the hook and you're invested in the
Yep.
first 10 minutes, and then it builds it up to, like you've alluded to, that last act of the movie, the last third of the movie is just, it's awesome. It's nonstop
Yeah.
and it's
It keep
blowing your mind, but it's also giving you tons of cool stuff to look at on the screen.
there's it's like just when you have an idea of like where the direction of the plot's going, it keeps ramping it up and
Yeah.
something weirder keeps happening. I'm like, I just remember first watch, I was like, what the fuck is going on?
And I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yep.
That's my favorite kind of movie. If I can figure it out too soon, or if it takes half an hour for me to feel something about the movie,
Yeah.
I generally don't like it as much because I want that engagement with the film, and Toolbox Murders does a really good job of that.
Absolutely. Just real quickly, let's check in with the chat. We got Alexander joining us. What is going on, Alexander? We also got Steven. What is happening, man? Thank you so much for joining us, guys. And another thing that I wanted to bring up with this film is I feel like this is one that embodies that dangerous rental energy. If you were to like not be super familiar with what this film is about, um, did it feel like a movie that was kind of whispered about either amongst your friend circle or maybe at the video store and we weren't supposed to watch it?
Oddly enough, for me, no, this
Okay.
movie never got talked about. It's not until recently that I've even found people who know about it and care about it. This movie, it always flew under the radar, at least in the circles that I was in. It's never gotten as much notoriety as some of the other movies of the same time period. And I can't put my finger on why, because, like we've talked about, I think it has all the elements that you want in a movie from this era.
Yep.
But this was one that just it's flown on, and they did a remake. I mean, in early
To
2000s, I think, something like that.
Toby Hooper did it, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yep, yep.
you got big name filmmaker, and they did a, and it's and granted the remake not my favorite, but
Yeah.
even still, you would think it would have boosted the overall visibility of the original, and in my experience, it really didn't do that.
That's interesting, especially with such a big name director behind it. You know, you would think that maybe his own spin on it would be able to be channeled with it. Maybe it just didn't really connect the way that he was anticipating. Now with this film, how do you feel like it handles themes of repression and hidden corruption beneath suburbia?
Well, that's an interesting question. It
'Cause
doesn't tackle them, it alludes to them,
Mhm.
right? We see it, we never really get an explanation, we never really get any information on those characters and how they feel about it, but you're right, I mean, that is a theme of the movie that's present, but that's kinda what I like about it, is it
Yeah.
never even the religious aspect of the uncle, you never get told why. You never I mean,
Nope.
you understand why, they kinda show you why, but you never get a direct explanation, and maybe it's because, this movie was touted as being based on a true story,
Yep.
and you even get the tagline at the end of the movie where it gives, like, what happened in the future to the girl,
Yeah.
which was all bullshit, and it wasn't a real story, but
It
moving
works. It listen, at first watch, I remember thinking that because I didn't know any better, but I thought legitimately that that was the case, and then come to find out, that that's obviously, it's not based on anything, but
but that's the beauty of it, right? Because again, pre-internet, you had no way to know.
yeah, you can get away with it.
You could absolutely get away with it, and it makes it that much creepier. You finally get done watching the movie, and then you see that rolling text, and you go, "Holy shit,
Yeah,
she's still out there, that poor
yeah,
girl."
just destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, it
Yeah,
really that the ending the movie that way, even though it is not real and it was made up, but ending the movie that way really puts a giant exclamation mark on what you just saw.
it's very, like, startling when you see it, but it's also you're left with this lasting impact of, like, what you just witnessed. It's not like it's getting tied up, neatly or anything. It's not the storybook ending. It's just like, now this person, this victim is left to deal with the aftermath of this.
Well, and it's
Um,
funny because I remember, I've seen it a few times since, I've seen it I saw it way back when, and I've
yeah,
seen
yeah.
it in the interim, and, it's one of those movies where I'm a little sad at the end of it. You feel bad, and it's rare in horror that I feel bad for anybody in it because, they set the characters up to be killed. You know who's gonna get killed, and but this is one where, when you get to the end of the movie, it's a little in a good way, it's a little
Yeah.
depressing, you kinda feel like, "Man, it's a fucked up world, and this movie just showed it to
Yeah.
me."
Well, and especially because it's happening, I mean, it's happening in an apartment complex, a
Yeah.
place that, for the people living there, they should feel safe, and yet this is happening, right from underneath their noses.
Well, and
Uh
it's that old saying where, the most deranged killers are your next door neighbor,
Mhm.
and in this movie,
So
that is
scary.
literally true where, the nephew and his friend, they know what's going on, they don't know who's doing it. We'll come to find out one kinda does,
Mhm.
but, I mean, the idea that you've been friends with this person and around this family
Mhm.
and not knowing it, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
That's a big reveal in the movie that it's not a jump scare, it's not a gory scene, but it's a terrifying scene when you find out who knows who.
Yeah.
It's a really impactful moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And now with the Toolbox Murders, do you think that it would still be as infamous today if not for its banned/censored history?
No, and that's the thing is, all the movies we'll talk about tonight
Mhm.
are infamous, and it all stems from when they were made.
Absolutely.
Today, we have movies. I mean, even just recently, movies like Terrifier
Yeah.
are are way more disturbing to general audiences than any of the films we'll talk about today.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think it would, but I don't think that should discourage people from going back and seeing these movies. A lot of people like
No,
to
not
tell,
at all.
it was banned in 47 countries. It must be the most awful thing you could ever watch. And 9 times out of 10, that's not true.
Yeah.
Um, but that doesn't make it not a good film or worth going back and revisiting.
No, and that's one thing that I feel like is just so it's very much of the time, and I think for that it definitely works, right? Um I think it's an interesting glimpse to see where things initially were and where we're at now. We're obviously a little bit more open-minded to graphic violence and, you know, all the element like, the inventive kills and things like that. I think that has evolved as time has gone on. Now, how do you think that the Toolbox Murders compares to other, let's say, midnight movies that circulated in the video stores at the time?
I think that quality of filmmaking, it's on par.
Mhm.
I think the cinematography was great. The acting is good enough, which is kind of par for the course for
For
most of
sure.
these
Yeah.
movies. Um, but the soundtrack's really nothing memorable. But I think the storyline is what makes this movie. It really is a more complex story than you're going to get from most of these midnight movie type things. Toolbox of all the films, with maybe the exception of The Beyond that we'll talk about tonight.
Yep.
I think Toolbox has one of the most complex and interesting storylines where you can actually go through and pull things out of it and reevaluate uh, how you see people or how you saw scenes in the movie. It's really, really well written.
I would agree 100%. And I know that eight or not 88 films, Blue Underground did a phenomenal 4K for this that, you know, it's just crazy to see how far things have come. Obviously, you and I both being very, very strong advocates for VHS tapes, but seeing it all the way on up to like probably the best this film will ever look.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty special. And Blue Underground always does a great job at doing so. We've got Kent Brock in the chat. What's up, Kent?
What's up, Kent?
And then we also got Joel joining us. What's happening, man? Thank you so much for joining us, guys. And we got my buddy Martin. Martin, good to see you, bud. All right. So we're going to switch it up. And this one I feel like is definitely um kind of the opposite, I think, of the Toolbox Murders when I think of like what this movie's all about and everything that brings to the table. And I've got Toby Hooper's 1981 The Funhouse.
You know what I have? I have
You're
Toby,
one upping me.
but I have the MCA stereo.
Yeah, oh my gosh. So break it down exactly what makes this edition different, just for those that aren't as familiar with VHSs like we are.
So in VHS collecting, it's all about which release it was and which distributor put it out.
Hmm.
So, originally when tapes first started coming out, you had a few major distributors. There was Magnetic Video, Paragon, Prism, MCA was a big one. And what happened is after these films have been out for a while and more video stores were coming online, then you started getting budget distributors like Good
Yep.
Times and Star Maker, and they were recorded in SLP. So if you're not familiar, tapes could be recorded in SP, which is standard play, LP, which is long play, or SLP, which is super long play.
Hmm.
And it goes quality wise SP to SLP, SP being the best quality. Original releases like this, they were always recorded on SP. That's how they did it. It took
Yep.
more tape. They were a little more expensive to do, but these things, that's how they did them. And in later years, you would see a lot more tapes come out that were recorded in SLP. You end up getting tracking issues. The audio quality isn't as good on the SLP tapes. So for collectors, generally, we always go for the earliest release possible, and first release, obviously, being the most coveted. MCA, you can always tell it's called the rainbow label. It says video cassette and kind of a little
Yep.
rainbow with the MCA logo. But the very first ones, this was a big deal to have your audio in stereo and not just in mono.
Yep.
And so you'll see the stereo badge on some of the really, really early releases. They generally didn't back then. We're so used to now with boutique distributors, they'll put different cuts of the film on the discs and all these extras. Back then, that didn't really happen. You got the same cut of the film. It's really more the quality of the recording that made the difference.
No, and that's the thing, like, I mean, this is basically at its probably like it's stripped down basically to the bare minimum. I mean, you're just getting essentially, for the most part, you're just getting the movie in the way it's meant to be seen, not all the, bonus features that, don't get me wrong, I love them,
Me
but
too. Me
there's something that's just so special about going back, and you can just appreciate the movie for what it is in the format that it was meant to be seen in. Um All right. So for those of you guys not familiar with the Funhouse, it's a film by Toby Hooper, came out in 81, and it revolves around four teens sneaking into a traveling carnival after hours, hiding inside the Funhouse ride for a night of thrills. But what begins as a reckless adventure turns into a nightmare when they witness a murder and find themselves hunted through the twisting corridors of the attraction. Beneath the flashing lights and carnival music lurks something monstrous, and escape becomes a deadly game in Toby Hooper's eerie blend of slasher horror and carnival. I would say like carnival horror in a way.
Yeah.
Um, you don't see that too often in film as much, but tell me a little bit about this. Was this one that you really enjoyed growing up? Like, was this
I
it?
adore this movie. I've
Okay,
always adored this movie. This movie is exactly what I love. I mean, it
okay,
is really to a T. When people come into the store, they'll ask for recommendations.
yeah,
And it's really tough with horror. And you know this as well as anybody is horror more than probably any other genre of film has an insane amount of subgenres.
yep,
And so I always try and talk customers through when they ask for a recommendation and find out, well, what have you seen that you already like so that I can tailor my suggestion to that.
yeah.
And if I'm the customer and somebody comes in and asks me, what movie do you like? This is one that I would say because I adore this style of movie. It is fun from the opening scene until the closing credits. It is not to make a pun out of it, but it is a roller coaster ride of a movie. I
Yeah.
adore it. The set design in this movie is perfect. I love it. Visually, I could watch this movie over and over and over again just to look at different things in the shots and the sets. It's such a fun flick. I absolutely adore this movie. And unfortunately, as big as Toby Hooper is, it's a movie that flies under the radar for a lot of
I
people.
was just gonna say that it's very underrated out of the top films that usually people will talk about. It's just one that, you got Texas Chainsaw and Poltergeist that are always up there, but where's the Funhouse?
And I get it. It's a different style movie, right? I mean, Poltergeist and TCM, at least TCM Part One, they're stylistically much different movies. They're more serious. The Funhouse is a fun movie. It's a
Yeah,
goof movie. The killer slash monster is out of this world awesome. But
gnarly
that's
looking.
yeah. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. That
Yeah,
reveal
yeah.
when you first see him for the first time is
Oh
such.
god.
But I adore this movie, and this is exactly when I'm looking for something late at night. It's like it's under 90 minutes. It's got to be like 82, 83 minutes, something like that. It's perfect, and it never stops. You start
No.
the movie, you press play, you get introduced to the girl and her little brother, and like that, you're off. You're going to the carnival, man, and it's a
Yeah.
wild ride once you get there.
Oh, it definitely is, and I love, kind of harkening back to what we were talking about earlier. I love that it's such a unique setting. It makes you feel like you're along for this ride with them. You're seeing all these grotesque sights and sounds, and the flashing lights and the bizarre attractions that they have. It really, I think, Toby Hooper did such a phenomenal job capturing that specific feeling. Now, if you saw this on the shelves in the video store, would the artwork promise something different than what you actually get?
Well, yes and no. So, I mean, if you look at the actual art, it's a little misleading. You think, we get a lot of clown horror, and that's kind of a modern thing. I mean, obviously, we've had it forever, but um, in later years, we got Killjoy and all these other
Yeah.
murderous clowns, and of course, Art the Clown now, who's super popular. But this movie is a little misleading because there's not some deranged clown at the carnival. I mean, you
No.
see the title for the fun house and you see the front, and it leads you to believe something that is actually not true about the movie. But that said, it's a super fun movie. The tagline on the tape, pay to get in, pray to get out.
Yeah.
I'm 12 years old. I'm seeing that. I'm going, hell yeah, I want to
You're
watch
like,
this movie.
"Sign me up."
Without a doubt, man.
Yep.
Without a doubt.
Now, did you feel like the carnival setting, did it create a sense of unease before the killings even happened?
Well, it did, and that's a credit to probably Toby and whoever did set design for the movie, because it would have been really easy to take just your standard. And again, this is 1981.
Mhm.
Carnivals were different back then. There were a lot less regulations. But this takes it even a step further. This is a sleazy carnival, man. I mean, they got strip shows at this carnival. This is not your normal carnival that you're going to take the kids to on a Sunday
No.
morning. This is a sleazy carnival. You got old dudes, drinking
Yeah.
flasks to watch strippers while the kids ride the tilt-a-whirl.
It feels dirty. Like,
It does. And
it
that's the
yeah.
best part. That's the
Yeah.
best part. This is
Yep.
a dirty movie. It's a grimy, dirty movie, but it's done in a really fun way.
Then we're just gonna check in with the chat. So we also got Shayna joining us. What's up, Shayna? And
Hey.
we also got Pink Palace joining us. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, guys, talking movies tonight. All right. And okay, so do you feel like voyeurism has a role that is played in this film, especially with the teens spying on things that they shouldn't?
Yeah, I mean, I'd argue that voyeurism has a role in most horror movies. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's us as viewers. We want to
Yep.
watch this stuff that we really
You
aren't
nailed
supposed
it.
to see. And then you put that also on the characters in the movie where they're seeing things. I mean, that's the whole plot point of this movie is they see something they're not supposed to see. But even before that turning point in the movie, they're already trying to sneak looks at the strippers, and the little brother, sneaks out of the house to go to the carnival. The whole thing is voyeuristic, and the whole
Yeah.
thing is taboo, and the whole thing is everyone in the film is doing something you're not supposed to do.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it. So now as a viewer, we get to kind of experience that with them. I shouldn't be watching this either. I'm
No.
12 years old and I'm seeing, the same things the kids in the movie are seeing. And that's what makes it so great for me.
And we kind of touched on this earlier, but for the fun house, does it capture that hidden gem energy as something that you discover by chance while browsing the horror section? If you're
Yeah,
at
I
the video
think
store?
so. I mean, again, it is a Tobe Hooper film. So if you had back then any knowledge of films, if you already liked Texas Chainsaw, there's a better chance that you're going to pick this movie up just because you recognize that name. And again, it's different today. Everybody talks first about who made the movie, but back then, it's not really how we talked about movies. There were a few, and Tobe being one of them, who people would kind of watch anything they put out. But if you didn't see Toby's name on the back of the box, I think that it sounds like a fun horror movie, and most people want to have fun with those movies.
And the one thing that you mentioned earlier was that, the cover art is kind of misleading. And that's tricky because, the reveal of the monster, and obviously we don't want to give any backstory on it necessarily, or if we do, spoilers obviously, but that's the tough part, because if that was front and center, that takes away kind of I don't want to say jump scare, but the sense of being startled when you first see how disgusting it
Yeah,
is,
without a doubt. No, you're
Yeah.
100% right, because I've thought about that before. Well, the cover's a little misleading, but what would I have put on the cover?
Yeah.
I don't know, because you do have to draw people in. I mean, that was the only way to rent a movie was a cool cover. That was your advertising for the movie. So they had to put something cool, and they did. They did a great job with it. And you're right, you can't put the reveal on. It blows the movie. I mean, that's one of the best parts of the movie.
And Shane is sold on this movie,
You
so
gotta see it.
I think you stuck the landing on that one. Now, how does the film twist the idea of a carnival being a place of fun into something grotesque and dangerous?
Well, I mean, for one, it is a sleazy carnival. So, again, this is not your typical for one thing, the whole carnival is shown at night. I don't think you ever see really any daytime scenes. Maybe they get there during the day, but it's very quickly evening. And so
Yep.
you only ever see the carnival in the dark, which already lends kind of a sinister, creepy vibe to it. And it is, again, it's a sleazier carnival than we would expect to come upon in today's times. They were a little more risque back then, but even this is even pushing that. I mean, I don't recall going to any carnivals that had strip shows at them. Maybe my parents just didn't take me to the good ones, but so I think they did a really good job, because it looks like a lot of fun. Like, it's a carnival that you're like, yeah, I'd love to go to something like that. But at the same time, man, the barkers, because the barker for the fun house is obviously a major person in the movie.
Yep.
But they have barkers for other attractions in the movie that you get done watching the movie and you go, well, that guy running the animal house thing, he was probably in on it too. That guy was a sleazeball.
Yeah.
We're
Oh,
all
they
sequels.
and the crazy part was is that, you get to the very end and it's kind of like it's in a some ways obviously different like subject matter that they're dealing with, but you get to the very end of it and you're just kind of left like beside yourself. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Everyone's just, spoilers, but like everyone's just here cleaning up and that's that. I'm like
And,
after
and there's so many, there's still a lot of loose ends. Like I rewatched this recently and I still cannot for the life of me figure out why they made the little brother a part of the movie. He really serves. It's interesting. It's kind of fun, but
yeah,
actually further the story. I
no.
don't really get it, but um, it's one of those movies where this ought to be up in the canon of most fun. This exemplifies, in my opinion, what the early 80s horror films really did well. They creeped you out. They gave you sleaze. There's tons of just sleaze in this
Oh
movie.
yeah.
It's so much fun start to
And
finish.
we're all for that, right?
Without a doubt, man.
Yep, yep. And then lastly, I just wanted to ask, are there certain scenes that stand out to you as the most nightmarish visuals? Mannequins, masks, or would you say the monster itself?
Yeah, I mean, I think the monster is really well done, and especially if you look at the makeup and the prosthetics that they did for the time period, it's a really well done. I mean, it is a terrifying monster, even though there's a couple points in the movie where they make you feel a little bit bad for him, which is an interesting because this is not that deep of a movie. But there are a couple points where you have some sympathy and some empathy for the monster until he does something horrible again, and then it kind of goes away. Um, but I think that the reveal is probably the most shocking part of the movie. The kills are great, the gore is really good, the effects are well done, but there's nothing that's going to blow your mind visually. The whole movie is fantastic to look at. The set is like I said at the start. I can not watch the characters on screen, and I can look at everything around them and be completely entertained.
Yeah, it's a kind of an oddly it's yes, it's sleazy, but it's kind of a beautiful movie in its own like absurd way. I mean, he just always had a knack for being able to like really establish the setting,
Mhm.
the characters, all that. Now speaking of a film that definitely establishes characters and a setting, no less, almost a nightmare setting. We got Zombie.
I mean,
I I fucking love this movie.
everybody loves this movie. I mean, you talk about zombie movies, you talk about Romero, and then if you don't immediately talk about this movie, I don't
We
know what
got a
you're watching.
problem.
I don't know what you're watching because I mean it's I mean night and dawn and then zombie. I mean that's zombie movies, man.
Yeah.
And this one does it better than just about anything out there. I mean, the gore is next level good, like all of his movies. Um, it's not a it's not as sleazy in some ways as some of the other movies we're talking about,
No.
but it does give you plenty of gratuitous. I mean, there's a very long scene when the woman,
Yeah.
for some reason, gets naked to go scuba diving.
Is that how it's supposed to go down?
I mean, listen, I'm in movies. You're
Yeah.
getting naked to go scuba
Listen,
diving, but I don't know why, but that's how it should be.
yeah, I was gonna say because I remember watching that in high school, and this was a film that was recommended to me within our circle, and this is really my first exposure to Italian horror, and I was, big on the Romero trilogy, and I wanted something more. Friend of mine recommended this to me, and I just remember I was like, "What is this? This is so strange," and the idea that it was like essentially serving as a sequel to Dawn of the Dead. I'm like, like this doesn't feel like it at all. And then you get further into it. I'm like, this feels more of like a nightmare than anything that Dawn of the Dead ever presented. I mean, those were definitely different these are definitely like different types of zombies for sure.
Yeah, I mean, these Italian horror movies, and I always tell people who come into the store who aren't familiar with Fulci and Argento and Bava that you have to be ready for these movies because they are disconcerting. You know, the way they're written, the way they're scored, the soundtrack, everything in the movie is designed to throw you off balance and make you a little confused and on the edge of your seat. It's sometimes hard to follow the timeline, and I think that's by design because again, it keeps you off kilter. Um, and then you get these really weird, almost at first you'll hear a piece of soundtrack and it's like, well, that doesn't really fit with the scene. And then the longer it goes on, you go, oh, well, I think that's kind of the point because
Yeah.
now I'm even more mixed up than I was when the scene started. And it's a very disconcerting movie to watch. So I adore it and I recommend it like crazy. But I do tell people if you're gonna watch Zombie or and really any of the Italian horror movies, the big ones anyway, you got to be ready for them because they're not like other movies.
There
They're just different.
could you agree that it's almost like an acquired taste? Like you kind of have to warm yourself up to these. Um, Zombie, I would say that that's probably more of an accessible point for if you're
Mhm.
trying to get into Italian horror. I always say Zombie and Suspiria are great entry points depending on what you enjoy.
I agree, and I would throw Demons in with that.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think that's another great one that is a little bit easier to get into and understand kind of how these movies work. But yeah, I think that those are really good recommendations if you're just starting to get into that subgenre.
For sure. My bad. I didn't mean to I almost had my dog knock everything over. So crisis averted. Sorry guys. But yeah, for those of you guys, maybe you haven't checked out this Lucio Fulci classic. So what happens in this film is when a mysterious abandoned boat drifts into New York Harbor, it leads a reporter and a young woman to a cursed Caribbean island. There they uncover a plague that rises from the dead, turning the tropical paradise into a nightmare of rotting corpses and unrelenting terror. From shark fighting zombies to flesh ripping feasts, Lucio Fulci's Zombie delivers one of the most iconic and gruesome visions of undead horror ever put on film. Um,
So can we talk about the shark? Because I mean, that's like
oh, come on now.
I mean,
We have to.
I've every time I see this movie, I think I would love to have been in the room because this is how I imagine it. I imagine there's Fulci and a couple other guys sitting in a room, and they go, "I got a great idea for a movie," and they lay out the movie, and they go, "Okay, cool," and then we're gonna have this scuba diving scene, and there's gonna be a great white shark, and then the zombie's gonna fight the shark, and I'm signing off on that, no questions asked. Do it, and it's so amazing that they actually did
It's
it.
there's something that is just it. I can't imagine seeing that when this film first came out and just how bizarre and out there this scene would be for a first time watch. I remember, let alone seeing this at home, and I'm watching this and I'm like, "Oh my god, how did they get someone to do this? How did they get the shark to cooperate?" And then you find out a little bit more about like how they actually filmed the scene, but it's incredible.
It's
It's
awesome. It
oh
is.
my gosh.
It's worth. If you haven't seen this movie, if nothing else, see it for that scene. You won't be disappointed. You really won't. It's awesome.
It's awesome. It definitely is. That's an understatement. You got GC joining us. What's up, GC? Thank you so much for coming to hang out. All right. And now, okay, so was this an earlier Italian horror film that you eventually got your hands on, or where did you initially find this one?
Yeah, I saw this at a friend's house. And again, I'm a young teenager, so I saw it, and I saw a lot of boobs, and I saw a zombie fight a shark, and I saw tons of blood and guts, and I was in.
Yeah.
And so I think, and I can't promise this, but it probably was the first Fulci movie I ever saw.
Okay.
Since then, I've spent a lot of time going back into his catalog, into some of the more obscure films, and I like most of them a lot. But Zombie, I think, was probably my first introduction to Fulci and to probably Italian horror. And I might have seen Demons before this, but
Oh, Demons is awesome.
such a great
Or
flick.
both of them. I love both of them in their own way.
But Zombie is just, and again, it is a disconcerting film because the first third of the film has a very different tone and pacing, and
Mhm.
I mean, it's even lit different. Like it looks like a different movie than the back half of the movie, but somehow it all works out in the end, and it feels like a cohesive movie. But there is nobody who does gore in a and this is gonna sound really weird to say, but in this beautiful a way as they do it here. I mean, some of the scenes are they're gorgeously shot, and whether you're watching it on tape or on 4K, it holds up either way because it was composed that well. They're really beautiful movies, as gross and disgusting as they can be.
Shayna was asking, is this the one with the extended eye death?
So
Oh,
that's a
it's
theme in the whole
gnarly.
series.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and we'll get into that a little bit more, once we start diving into the actual plot. So now, do you feel like this was the type of like tape that you'd rent just because of the infamous or the worm eye cover art that it had on it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that would have done it for me. If I think I remember hearing about this movie, and it was probably the shark scene that probably in someone telling me about it really got me to want to
Yeah.
see it. But yeah, I mean, the cover's awesome. The cover's absolutely awesome. It's so grotesque, and yet you can't stop looking at it.
There's something about the way that Italians do zombies where they're almost like, I'm not trying to bash like Dawn of the Dead, but it's a much different take on what the zombie is interpreted as. Whereas with this, it's earthy, just gross. There's like insects and worms and stuff. Like that to me feels on par with what I would assume would be more of a accurate representation if God forbid this ever goes down.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's a very visceral feeling. I mean,
Yeah.
they elicit this like whole body response when you see the zombies because it's not just makeup, it's the whole thing. I mean, you even get close-ups of like the rotted arms and you can see the
Yep.
tendons. And you just don't get that with a lot of other zombie movies. They focus on the face. They focus on, the kind of labored walking that's become like the trope of a zombie
Mhm.
movie. But in these movies, and zombie in particular, you get close-ups of other parts of the zombie that you just don't get on anywhere else.
No. No, and now, okay, so how much of this do you feel like, okay, for the VHS circulation, how much of that do you think cemented Zombie as a cult classic outside of Italy?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, this was one of the few Italian movies that did get talked about a lot.
Mhm.
And I don't think back then we necessarily talked about it as an Italian horror movie. I don't think we made that distinction back then. It was just a really good zombie movie. I think that, you know, even the dubbing, which now as an adult and having seen it a bunch of times, doesn't affect me that much. And but the dubbing in a lot of these movies is can be a turnoff for new viewers. Um, but to me, it's kind of the charm of them
Oh, it
because
is. It definitely is.
yeah, I mean, they used to hire people from all nationalities. So you have a whole Italian crew, right? Like the whole crew is Italian, but you got a bunch of American actors, you got Italian actors, you might have a Spanish actor. And so they would have them read their lines in their native languages and then just dub the whole thing.
It's part
And
of the charm.
it is part of the charm. But I do warn people that if you're not ready for it, it can be a little bit startling when you see someone clearly speaking English and then you have someone dubbing their lines also in English and it doesn't quite match up. It can throw you a little bit if you're not ready for it.
Oh, I agree. And now, do you feel like the film leans more into atmosphere and dread, or is it more shock and gore with this one?
Well, I think it's got both depending on where you are in the film. And that's one of the things that I really like about this movie is you do get, I mean, at the start of the movie, you get the shock of the boat zombie right off the bat, or pretty close to right off the bat. And it's such a great scene because you're confined on this boat and there's nowhere to go. You're literally on a boat. And so you have, 10 square feet.
It's not big at all.
No, it's tiny, right? But then once you get to the island, and even on the way to the island, then you get that sense of dread of like, well, what is this island? Like, where are we going, and what in the world are we going to find when we get there? And so I think the movie does a really good job of not relying. I don't care for movies that are all atmosphere, and I don't care for movies that are just shock value with no story and no substance to it. So I
That's
think
what I
this
was
is one of the movies that does a really good job at both.
That's what I was about to say. Now, okay, so we mentioned the location. Does the island, the decaying ruins, the ocean, did you feel like that part of it built like a sense of doom?
Yeah, I mean, it did. They did a really good job with it. It now, in hindsight, it's a little bit it's a little bit of a caricature of what you would envision, this cursed voodoo island, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's a little silly now. That, to me, if anything hasn't aged well in that movie, it's that. Which is not to say I don't like it. I just
Yeah.
think that that's a part where it's a little bit goofy because it's a little overdone with the whole even the music in some of those island scenes. It's a little like
Yeah.
it hits you over the head a little too hard. But
A Fabio Frizzi score.
and which I adore. Listen, I
Yeah.
adore.
Yeah.
But it is a little heavy-handed when they're on the island. There was a couple points where you're just like, you kind of feel like you're on a ride at Disney World, and
Definitely has like what would you say, like kind of like a tropical flair to the music a little bit.
yeah, I mean, you get like bongo drums
Yeah.
and like the metal, and it's like, am I on spring break in Jamaica or
Yeah, right.
Ireland?
I'm like, I feel like I don't feel safe even with this music. Like you guys, Lucio Fulci, you're not fooling me.
Yeah, but
uh,
again, I mean, I'm nitpicking and I'm talking about something that has been out for 40 however many years now. So you got to cut some slack there, because I
yeah,
wouldn't have had that description of it when I was 13. I would have loved it.
yeah.
And so again, it's how you look at it and when you see it. But overall, I think it's done really, really well.
And then, which scene did you feel like hit you the hardest? Was it the eye gouging scene that we were talking to in the
That
chat?
scene is that scene is, it's so drawn out. I mean, they linger. It doesn't happen. You think it's going to happen, and then it still doesn't. And then you think it's going to happen. You're okay, now it's going to happen, and then it still doesn't. And then when it finally does happen, it's a very prolonged shot of it.
It's prolonged, and then to make matters worse, like Fulci is just so mean spirited about it. He ends up breaking off the splinter inner. I'm like, as if it wasn't bad enough that like you're already having your eye pierced, but then now you have this on top of it. I'm like, you know what? Just forget about it.
It's great.
Just
It's so
all
great.
bets are off.
I mean, that is probably the most shocking scene in the movie, but I will to the
Ugh.
death tell you that the shark scene is my favorite scene.
Okay. Yep. I'd be right there with you. And then lastly, with this one, do you feel like the film's bleak apocalyptic ending is one of the most haunting in zombie cinema? That final shot of the zombies marching across the Brooklyn Bridge, is that feel like in a way like a nightmare that can't be contained essentially by that point?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it's done so well. That's one of those movies where, it gets wrapped up, and, we know who the survivors are, and they
Mhm.
appear to be safe, and they're on the boat. And then all of a sudden, Fulci drops a bombshell. Oh, no, you're not safe. Oh, no, you're not even remotely safe. In fact, what you just went through, that ain't even close to what you're about to go through. It's terrifying.
I always it's tough because as much as I love Dawn of the Dead, and I feel like that's usually in the conversation with this or Dawn of the Dead, I feel like Zombie is the movie that I come back to more. I feel like there's a lot of things that this film does in ways a little bit better, and it's just more so what I'm looking for out of a zombie film versus
Yeah,
Dawn, you
I,
know?
I think that's a really valid take on it, because they're very different. For as much as they have similar, stylistically, they're made very differently. And you do get, I mean, the ending is so good because you're left going, you immediately want to start the movie over
Oh yeah.
when you get to the end, because you're just like, well, holy hell, they're not okay.
No, nobody's safe. Um, Now, speaking of not necessarily being safe, I wanted to talk to you about, I would say almost like an art house slasher in a way, and that is Abel Ferreira's Driller Killer. This,
So
go ahead.
had you asked me 2 months ago how much I liked this film, I would have told you I loved this film.
Okay.
I rewatched it, and I don't love it as much as I used to be perfectly honest.
Okay.
It's
What was it about it with the rewatch that you felt
I
like kind of
think
changed
I
your
think that because I knew what was going to happen, I had a harder time being interested. This movie, if you haven't seen Driller Killer, it takes there's a very long setup to the movie. There's a lot of movie that kind of gets you to understand why the main character is going crazy and to feel his kind of descent into madness. And on a first watch, I think it's really well done.
Mhm.
On rewatches, it's it's tough to stay engaged for me.
Yeah.
It's tough for me to stay engaged that long. Now they cut that with some really fun sleazy scenes. The punk band is awesome.
Yeah.
The girls in the apartment are awesome. There's a lot of fun to be had, but I felt on the rewatch myself being impatient to kind of let's get to the crazy.
Yeah. Now, with this film, is there anything that you would compare it to, or like what would serve as like almost like a double feature for this type of movie?
That's a good question. I haven't thought of that. If I was going to double feature this movie, I would want to pair it with a faster opening movie because
Hmm.
I think having two back-to-back slow burns would be tough to stay with. So I would want to have, like we talked about, the Toolbox Murders, where you get hooked right away. That would be a good foil for a movie like this because Driller Killer, if you're going to watch it as a double feature, I would watch it first
Yeah.
because you're fresh and you're ready to go, and maybe you're more apt
A
to want
little
to.
bit more caffeinated.
Yeah, for sure, right?
Yeah.
Because it is fascinating and it is a really good study of a descent into madness. And I know that's a cliche that gets thrown around a lot in horror, but this movie does it really well.
I could,
It's just, again, pacing was different back
yeah.
then,
Oh, it
and
definitely was.
but it takes its time, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say like something like a New York Ripper or Maniac. I feel like would
Sure.
be a complimentary film, especially with. There's something about the films that around this time they captured the New York grit. I don't know. There's just something about that. I don't know if I would have wanted to live there during during
Oh
this
yeah.
time.
Well, that's
You
one of the
know,
best parts about watching these is I think that too. I wouldn't have wanted to live there back then,
hell
but I
no.
love getting to experience it for an hour and a half.
Yeah. Yep. Um, and for those of you guys who haven't had a chance to check this out, it revolves around a struggling New York artist that's living on the edge of poverty and insanity, tormented by noise, chaos, and decay around him. So, as his frustrations mount, his artwork stalls, he snaps, taking to the streets at night with a power drill to vent his rage on the city's homeless. Gritty, grimy, and unflinching, the driller killer blends urban decay with psychological breakdown and is a notorious entry in the late 70s. I would say horror underground for films. Now, how do you feel like the driller killer uses gritty New York City streets to create its horror?
Well, that's what makes the movie work, right? Because if you
Mhm.
set this story, if you take this exact story and you set it in some Midwest town, it's a boring movie. It's a cliche movie. New York makes this movie because it
Yeah.
is the New York that we all love to remember,
Mhm.
even though most of us probably never saw it in real life. I
Yeah.
never did. But when we
No.
talk about Grindhouse, we talk about, this sleazy part of New York where there were all these shitty little theaters and you would pay $3 and you could sit there all day long and watch, 13 hours of this trash.
Yeah.
And that's
Sign
what
me up.
yeah, without a doubt, right? But that's what
Yeah.
this movie evokes. I mean, there's
Yeah.
bugs everywhere. It's gross. You feel like you want to wash your hands or take a shower halfway through
all
the
all of these all of these movies I felt like that. I'm like,
yeah,
they're to
fair.
varying
That's fair.
degrees,
That's
but
fair.
I would say this is definitely one that you can feel the city. It's almost like its own character, and
It is.
it's uh, yeah, it's definitely. I don't know if the setting is necessarily scarier than the murders themselves, but Ferreira definitely did a very effective job at really painting the picture with the location of this film. Now, do you feel like the drill is an effective weapon for shock value, or does it feel more symbolic than frightening?
Well, I think it's effective because it is a terrifying thing. If you really think about the mechanics of being killed with a power drill, that's horrifying, right? I mean, that's terrifying. The funny part is, again, time and place. This is an old movie. You couldn't go to Home Depot and buy a Walt with a clip-in battery.
No.
So ostensibly, he's wearing a battery pack on his belt, and this corded drill is plugged into the battery pack. So the logistics right there, you kind of have to suspend disbelief and go,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay, he's walking around the streets of New York City in the
You
70s."
don't question it.
Yeah, but you can't question it, right? It's
Yeah.
the same you watch Some Fucking Massacre and you have the same exact thought, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to worry about it.
I don't know
Um,
what's scarier. Like they're both. very terrifying concepts of something like that to happen. Like I mean, the on rewatch preparing for this, I mean, there's those up close scenes where you see him like legit drilling into someone's head. I'm like, this is, oh my god, I can't imagine if this was I mean, God forbid if that ever happened, but like, it's just so visceral
It
and
is.
uncomfortable.
But that said, I think that the kills in this movie, all things considered, and especially by today's standards, they're on the tamer side.
Mhm.
You get, I think there's one right through the forehead,
Mhm. Yep.
and there's a couple that are like in the back, and you never actually see a lot. It kind of takes a page out of Texas Chainsaw Part One, where it's more implied horror than it is visually done. Famously, this movie, was one of the on the video nasties
Yep.
list.
That's
But
right.
the story I've always heard about it is it wasn't because of what was in the movie; it was because of the cover. Because the cover of this movie shows the one kill
That's
where
right.
the forehead, and that's what got this movie on the list. I don't know whether it's true. I mean,
Yeah.
but it
That's
wasn't.
that's very interesting.
But
Now,
that's the story I've always heard.
do you think that the scariest thing with this film is the actual kill sequences or Reno's mental unraveling leading up to them?
That it's by far for me anyway. It's Reno's unraveling because he is. There's something about his look in this movie, and like you said, you're already in this grimy, what you must assume must be a roach infested, nasty
Yeah.
apartment. They're broke. They got no money. They're constantly looking for weed and booze.
The pizza looked nasty.
Oh my god, it looked terrible, right?
I
And he
was
would
like,
eat it in pieces of
"Whoa."
and it's just gross,
I
man.
was like, just give me the drill. I don't
Yeah,
want this
and
pizza.
and then when you finally get to the kills, he's manic. I mean, he's killing indiscriminately, and so for that, it's scary because a killer with a target is less scary to me in a movie than a killer who will kill anyone at any time.
Mhm.
That's a scarier thought. If I'm not the ex-girlfriend of the mass killer, then I probably have nothing to worry about. But in Driller Killer, everybody's got something to worry about because
Yeah.
this guy's nuts and he doesn't care. He's walking around with his drill just looking for somebody.
Well, let me ask you, like, which was there a certain sequence or scene that disturbed you the most? Was it like the first drill attack, the apartment spree, the final confrontation for you?
I think it's probably the first kill just because you spend so long waiting for it to happen. And the movie does do a really good job of there's lots of points earlier in the movie where he could have broken and he could have killed and he
Mhm.
didn't. And he was
Trying
able
to
to,
keep it together,
yeah, he could take a
for sure.
breath, he could keep it together, and so it's that suspense of, well, is this the scene where he snaps? Oh no, I guess not. We're going out for pizza and weed. Oh, okay. Well, now he's crazy again. Is this the scene? No, he's gonna go have sex with the girl. Okay, and
Yeah.
then finally he does snap. And to me, that's the shocking one because you're kind of up on this ledge, just it's coming. It's called Driller Killer. He's gonna kill somebody with a drill at some point. And
Yeah.
so when it finally does happen, and then when it does happen, I will give credit to the movie because once it does happen, the movie takes on a whole different pace.
Oh,
All of a sudden,
picks
you're
up.
in it, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And we got Jeff joining us. What's happening, man? Thank you so much for coming to hang out with us tonight. And the last but not least, is the Driller Killer ultimately about a man snapping or about a city that breeds monsters?
Ooh, I think you can make an argument for either case. I mean, I think that we see a lot of sleazy. I love exploitation films, and a
Same.
lot of them take place in this urban wasteland. I recently watched Switchblade Sisters, and I had the same thought process of like, these people got nothing else going for them. Of course, they turn bad, and so you kind of see that in this movie. It's like the guy's a starving artist. He's got nothing ahead of him to look forward to, and you can see him just going down and down and down, and his mental health being eroded. Um,
It's out of desperation in a lot of
it is
ways.
desperation.
Mhm.
Well, it is. I mean, they actually say it in the movie. He can't pay his rent. He's got no money. His art broker or dealer or whatever the guy's title is, abandons him. He's got nothing, and that's terrifying on its own. But I think
Absolutely.
you can make the case for because they do show so many homeless people, so many mentally ill people, and alcoholics, and all these things that I think that they're also making the case for. he's kind of a product of his environment, and
Mhm.
that's terrifying too.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of, I wouldn't say a product of its environment, but a film that I feel like the environment is definitely a big part of what sets up this movie to be so effective, and that is none other than The Burning. I This is another one that is a staple for me.
Yep.
As soon as like Memorial Day passes, I'm ready to go. Like, sign me up for the summer slashers or summer camp slashers, and this is top of the list for me.
Yep.
When did you find this one? I mean, was this one that you kept in your rotation as far as, like summer staples?
No, oddly enough, I saw this when I was pretty young, probably
Okay.
too young, and then I didn't see it again until I was an adult.
Oh,
And
interesting. Okay.
well, because it's one of those films, again, summer camp slashers, it's such a huge thing. I mean, some of the biggest, franchises ever are built on essentially the same premise or a variation of the premise. And unfortunately, The Burning gets left out of that conversation a lot of times. People want to talk about Friday, people want to talk about sleepaway camp, and you have to remind them that The Burning exists, which is really a shame because it's different than those movies.
I agree.
It has a killer that ought to be up there on the Mount Rushmore of killers. They could have done so much more with Cropsey.
I love Cropsey.
I mean, A, what a great name. It's a
Yeah.
terrifying name if you really start
Yeah.
thinking about it.
Well, even right, because part of it's based on loosely based on the urban legend of
Yeah.
Cropsey, right?
Yeah. And that's what I mean is they could have taken that and he could have been, Jason level historically, and he just wasn't. Um, and it has such a star-studded cast. I mean, Jason Alexander's in the movie. It's
With a head
crazy.
of hair.
Yeah, and he's thin. But his
Yeah.
voice is exactly the same.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's definitely it's a slasher that I feel like has more likable characters than most slashers
I
that we
agree.
see. You're actually a little bit more invested in this group of campers. Um, I There's something that about this movie, I always love pairing it with one of the Friday the 13th, and I always do wonder that what would this film have been as effective if it had ever gotten sequels? It's hard to say, There's a part of me that almost appreciates it more for the fact that it's just one film and
Mhm.
it does what it does really well, and I think that's what I love it for.
I would agree with that take 100%. Yep.
Um, Now, if you guys haven't checked this out, I know we are now obviously we are out of summer, but that does not mean you can't go back and check out this film. So, at a summer camp deep in the woods, a cruel prank leaves caretaker Cropsey hideously burned and thirsting for revenge. Years later, he returns, stalking a new group of campers with garden shears in hand. What follows is a bloody trail of ambushes, riverside massacres, and forest chases, cementing The Burning as one of the most fiercest and infamous slashers of the early 80s.
Yep.
Um, how effective do you feel like Cropsey's backstory is to setting the terrifying tone that we get for this movie?
I thought it was great, and what was great about it is they didn't take long
No.
to do it. It's done very succinctly. You get all the pertinent information you need to be terrified of him, and it sets up the why in a quick, easy to understand way, and it lets you get right into the movie. I
Yep.
love it. Movies are do that really well.
Now, did you like the way that this film explores the consequences of bullying and revenge?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be 100% honest. This is like the Funhouse to me. It's just a really fun movie to
Yeah,
watch. So
agreed.
I don't think I've ever really thought particularly critically about it in that way. Zombie and The Beyond, and Toolbox. I think they're, to me, a little more introspective movies. Even Driller Killer, like we talked about
For
with
sure.
The Burning, is fun, man. It's just a fun movie. So yeah, I think those elements exist in there if you care to explore them. For me, I'm like you. I'm a seasonal watcher of this. I love these movies during the summer. I watch The Thing in the winter, and I would never watch it in July.
Yeah.
So this is in my rotation of summer camp slashers, and it's one of those 90-minute turn your brain off and just enjoy the visuals of it because it is a beautiful movie. It's a really cool looking movie.
And the effects, the Tom Savini
Effects are
effects are
great. Oh
like,
my god.
S tier for me.
When that severed arm comes off the swim raft,
Yeah.
oh, it's so good. So
Just
good.
blood going
Oh, it's
everywhere. I
so
mean, it's
good.
whew.
And you know
Now,
it's coming. You know exactly what's gonna happen, and yet, god damn it if they didn't nail
I
it.
know. Yeah, he is just such a instrumental figure in elevating these movies to that next degree, and it's amazing because obviously he was just so important to a lot of these slashers that were coming out around this time. Now, how do you feel like the isolated campgrounds, obviously the cabins, the lake area amplify the tension and vulnerability for the teens? Did you feel like the setting worked?
Without a doubt. And that's the thing with these movies is I think part of the reason they're effective is because that's the one place where you shouldn't be scared, right? You're at summer camp, you're with your friends, you're
It's supposed to be
having
fun.
fun. It's supposed to be fun. And so I think for the characters, they let their guard down. And even as viewers, we kind of let our guard down. And
Hmm.
so, if you're in a like zombie, you're going to a voodoo island. So you're already you're waiting for it. But when you're at summer camp, it's fun, and so I think it does a really good job. I mean, the scenery is beautiful. They picked I
Yeah.
don't know what camp they shot that movie at, but it was a beautiful camp to shoot the movie. The scenery is just gorgeous.
Oh,
And
even and going back to I highlighted this earlier when we were talking about Toolbox Murders, but both this and the Funhouse, they have a 4K from Scream Factory that look exceptional.
yep,
So if you guys are looking for a great way to watch these movies, obviously everything on, all the way from VHS tapes all the way up to nice crispy 4Ks, there's always great ways to watch these. Now, do you think that the promise of inventive kills on the cover art matches what the film delivers?
I do. I do. This is one where I think you get exactly what you hope you're gonna get.
I love
Uh,
the poster too.
Poster's so cool, man.
Yeah.
And so yeah, this one doesn't over promise and under deliver. You get if you picked that box up in the mid 80s and you read the blurb on the back and you looked at the cover, you're gonna get the movie you hoped you had took home with you. They really did a great
So
job.
it's so good.
It is good.
Now which death scene hits you the hardest? The fire attack, the when they're on the river, the raft kill.
The river, I think, is I think the river gets me just because you have that isolation. I mean, they went, I don't remember how many miles they supposedly went, but it was far enough away that there ain't no walking back. You can't run back to
No.
camp. You're out there on the river, and all of a sudden you got dead campers, and there's no cell phones back then. There's no way to get a hold of anybody. You're missing the canoes. I mean, if I recall correctly, the canoes were gone for a period of time, and it's this that it's the same reason some of the biggest horror films in history, the thing works because of the isolation.
Yep.
And I think The Burning does that really well in that river scene. Is you are truly screwed, you can't go anywhere, and there's a killer
No.
loose.
And did you feel like that there was like a sequence that you felt like was the most nightmarish? Was the attack in the woods, chase across camp, or like a sudden unexpected kill that happened?
I think the chase through the woods is harrowing as a viewer because it's a really chaotic look to it, and so you feel the panic. But to me, the swim raft is just I love that scene. It's because I maybe it's we had a cottage when I was a kid and we had a swim raft and I was always terrified of it because I was always certain there was something
Yeah.
beneath the swim raft. And so I think that scene it's always stuck with me because I had that fear as a kid.
It's so I mean, it's definitely it's whether it's either you're getting attacked by crops or if you're going to succumb to, the fast moving waters. I mean, it's either way, it's terrifying what's
Yeah.
happening.
Yep.
Um, and how did you feel like the final confrontation delivers on suspense and horror? Was it satisfying for you or was
It
it
was
more
very sad,
haunting?
and I love how they tie the end of the movie back to the start of the movie. I thought that was really clever and well
Yeah.
done. It feels like a completed story. Sometimes I'm let down by the defeat of a killer, and this movie I think delivers really well on it.
It's definitely a staple in my rotation this time of year. This Sleepaway Camp, Friday the 13th. I mean, or well, not now, but during the summer.
Yep.
It's definitely up there.
Yep.
Even Madman is another gem.
Yeah. Yeah. Another
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah, yeah. So, but speaking of a film that to me has such a special place, especially with this taking place so close to where I grew up, and that is the director, some of the cast from this area, and that is none other than Sam Raimi's Evil Dead.
I
I
mean, come
ah,
on.
the best. So was this one of your like maybe like earlier discoveries that you had getting into horror? Where did you see this? Was it through the video store? Did you, find it on your own?
No, this was through the video store. It was probably me and my friends. I mean, this was a movie that was talked about. I would hear about it from the older kids. I mean, this movie it's oddly enough, this movie's been a hit
Oh yeah.
forever. I mean, it's one of those movies that it came out and it got talked about and it never stopped being talked about. I mean, The Evil Dead has such a history of being a favorite of virtually every person who likes horror likes this movie.
Yeah.
I know lots of people who don't like a Halloween movie for whatever reason, or they don't like Friday the 13th for whatever reason. I don't think I can recall a single person telling me they don't like The Evil Dead.
It's just on so many levels you can appreciate what they were able to do on such a tight budget and how inventive Sam Raimi was. You're basically taking really a group of actors that just were at the time no name actors, and he got his friends together and they put it together to create one of the most iconic horror movies for next, I mean, not having a lot to work with.
Oh,
um
I mean, it's literally one location, and the whole location's maybe 800 square feet.
yeah, yep. Now, for those of you guys, I mean, I hope that you guys have checked out this film, but in the off chance that you haven't, this is five friends that retreat to a remote cabin in the woods where they stumble upon the Necronomicon, an ancient book of the dead. Reading its passages unleashes a relentless evil that possesses the living, turning the getaway into a night of blood-soaked terror. With demonic forces closing in, survival demands unthinkable choices in Sam Raimi's raw, ferocious classic that redefined cabin in the woods horror. Um, Now, with this movie, how did you feel like the Evil Dead explored isolation and vulnerability in the wilderness? I mean, they're pretty far out there where they're camping, and it establishes that.
Yeah, and that's a big, I think, part of them because, like you said, they had no budget, right? I mean, literally, like no budget, and
No.
so they had to make it. It's all shot at night, so if you watch the film, it's always black through the windows, and that alone, even if you don't
Oh, it's
notice it,
creepy.
it's creepy as hell, and it
Yeah.
takes you a little while to even understand why it's so creepy looking until you go, well, you never see the sun. It's always dark in this movie.
Hmm.
You always have that dread of what's out there, and then of course,
Especially at night, right?
especially at night, and then
Yep.
of course, a character does go out there and it's as bad as you think it's going to be.
It there's okay, so I'm so glad you brought that up because there's those scenes where they're just getting settled into the cabin. It's at night, they're all hanging out together and just having a good time. And the windows are just, it's pitch black out there. I mean, you can't see anything, right? And there's something that's so creepy about the fact that the woods, I mean, the essence of the woods is essentially just lurking outside that window and watching them. And it's very voyeuristic in a lot of ways, going back to what we talked about earlier.
Yep. Yeah,
Um,
it's done really, really well. I mean, the woods are one of the threats in the movie, and
mhm.
not just in an existential way, but literally, the woods can kill you in the movie.
The woods does a lot more than that. Yeah. Um, Now, would you have been tempted to rent this movie based on the cover art or the forbidden horror reputation that it had?
Well, I would have all of the above. I mean, the
Yeah.
reputation preceded it. This movie got talked about a ton. There's a million covers for this movie. The Evil
I
Dead has been redistributed so many damn times. The original Thorn EMI covers the classic one,
Yep.
but there were a ton of re-releases, and they all did different covers, and they're all cool, which is really rare. You see a lot of later releases of tapes where they would start to put the one I always talk about is Lair of the White Worm. The original
Oh,
cover
yep.
is awesome. And then in later releases, they just put Hugh Grant's face right on the cover, and it sucks. Evil Dead,
I
every
love
cover
it.
was cool. They were all different, but they were all very cool.
Yeah.
So I don't think that you couldn't go wrong with this movie. If somebody recommended it, you're gonna want to
No.
rent it. If you see it on the shelf, you're gonna want to rent it. If you read the back, you're gonna want to rent it. They nailed it.
Oh, absolutely. And I know we were talking about the film's low budget, claustrophobic aesthetic. Do you feel like that makes the horror more intense or more
Oh,
surreal?
without a doubt, it is so much more intense because again, you can't go outside. You're
No.
screwed if you go outside, but you can't stay inside either. You literally can't win in this situation, and that's a horrifying feeling.
Yeah.
To imagine yourself there going, well, I can't leave,
And
and
nobody's safe.
yeah, and who's the next to turn? And then again, it has a lot of parallels for me with The Thing, because that's the terrifying part
Yep.
about The Thing is these are my friends, and yet I don't know if they're going to kill me or not.
Yeah. And it's interesting because a friend of mine, my buddy Josh over at Beyond the Grave Media, go check out his channel. But he and I were talking about did you see When Evil Lurks?
No, I haven't
Okay.
seen it.
Okay. So if you like Evil Dead, I highly recommend that because we're trying to find like the perfect double feature. It's obviously the possession subgenre of films, and we're just going back and talking about just how effective this cult classic is, and it just laid the groundwork down for so many other films that followed it. Now, how effective is the cabin itself as a character? I mean, does it feel alive and malevolent in a lot of
So
ways?
good. It's so
Yeah.
good. It's crazy to me that it is so good because again, they had no money, but that cabin is creepy as hell, man. And the cellar,
Oh,
nightmare
oh.
fuel, even if you
I,
don't know what's down
I
there.
don't care how many times I've seen it. It's the idea of that the outside's not safe, the cabin itself isn't safe, the cellar's not safe, and I gotta ask you though, like what scene scared you the most? Was it the woods at night? Was it Cheryl's possession or like the tree grabbing scene?
The tree scene I love because that's a visceral scene for me because that helplessness, she's pinned down. I mean, that's a horrifying thought. But the scene that gets me the most every time I watch it, and this is one of those movies I've seen so many times that
Yep, same.
I can kind of have it on in the background and whatever. But the scene that I will always stop and watch is when Ash is pointing the shotgun at his girlfriend, and he's now decided, well, I have to kill her. It's the only thing I can do. And then all of a sudden, she turns back into his girlfriend,
Oh,
and it's like,
like gut
what a
wrenching.
gut punch, man!
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's that to build yourself up to the point where you're ready to do it, to then only have her go back and plead for your help. Oh, it gets me every time.
I have to ask you, out of the entire Raimi trilogy for Evil Dead, do you have a favorite?
Um, I think it's probably Evil Dead 1. Evil
Same.
Dead 2 is a really great film, and it kind of shows what Sam was capable of when he did have a little more money to work with. But I think Evil Dead 1, because it is so amazing with so little to start with, that to me is just that shows you that's a good filmmaker. If you can make something
Absolutely.
that great with an 800 square foot cabin, 5 people, and no money, man, you got something.
I had a chance to actually see it at the Ford Drive-In. They were doing like showings for that. So to see it in that format was just absolutely incredible. There was
So cool.
it was it you caught it on a cool night, I mean I've obviously seen it countless times, on whether it's everything ranging from VHS to Anchor Bay DVD all the way on up to 4K. But um now, the last thing I wanted to ask you about this movie was: is the evil in the film scary because it's supernatural and unstoppable, or because it corrupts ordinary people?
I think it's the corrupts ordinary people because
Mhm.
listen, there's a million movies out there where it's a supernatural force that gets unleashed, but it's generally the fact that it consumes and can consume anyone around you. That's what makes it absolutely terrifying because it's that dread of, am I next? Are you next?
Yep.
You don't know, and that's a horrifying feeling.
It's man, it is not a film that is, I would say it's, no matter how many times I've watched it, it still hits just the same.
Agreed.
Um, Speaking of a series of films, and more importantly, we're going to be focusing on the first one because I think that that's the one that most people think about when you discuss these films. But Faces of Death, yeah, not well, how they advertised it is it was supposed to be more visceral and supposed to be all 100% real, but what's your relationship with these movies? 'Cause I know you and I talk about them, we've talked about it before, and it's, I don't know if they're films that have aged quite as well as when I initially saw them. It's fun to revisit them, especially with the new collection that they had earlier this year. But what do you think about these movies? Maybe more importantly, the first one.
Um, I don't really care for the movies today,
Mhm.
but they are a very important part of horror for me, and I think for a lot of people.
Same.
It was the first really taboo movie. All my friends talked about it. Everyone talked about it. And it was one of the movies that we snuck into my friend's basement. And it was a big deal. I mean, we had been planning this. We planned this out. We knew we were going to finally get to see Faces of Death. We were ready to start making fun of whoever got grossed out first. And it was a big deal because, again, pre-internet. So the lore was it's all real. You're going to see 2 hours of real death, and it's going to blow your mind. And it's banned in 47 countries, and
Let
doesn't get
me
any better than that for a 12-year-old.
now let me ask you, because was that part of the appeal for you? I mean, out of all the movies that, whether it's these films that we're discussing tonight or any other more shocking, violent films that you've seen over, years and years, I mean, was this the one that you felt most uncomfortable to watch?
It was the one that I had the most trepidation to watch before I saw
Same.
it. It was the one that had the biggest build up, the biggest expectation. I was nervous that I'd be the one in the friend group who couldn't handle it.
Then you're
So
stuck there.
yeah, and you said, what are you going to do? You're going to be the wimp in the group.
Yeah.
You can't close your eyes or go to the bathroom. You got to sit
No.
there and watch it. So it definitely had the biggest buildup of any movie in my formative years. Um, at the time, I think it lived up to what I wanted it to be because there wasn't anything else like that
No.
yet. So I think at the time it did do its job. It was shocking and it was difficult to watch. In hindsight, and aside from the fact that we now know not everything was real, but even aside from that, it doesn't hold up great as a sit down and watch it film.
No.
It misses the mark.
It you okay, because I'm glad you brought that up. It's a film that I think has more importance in horror cinema than it does repeat value.
Mhm.
Um, and I agree with you there because it upon rewatch, I went back, I watched, I think it was at least the first one when that collection came out, and it was a lot, like it didn't age well, is what
It
I'm
did
saying.
no,
You
no.
know,
But again, I don't think it ever was going to. I
no,
mean, looking back through rose-colored glasses, that movie was never going to age well. You know, you're watching it on tape. I mean, we probably watched it on like at best a 19-inch CRT
yeah,
TV.
hell yeah,
Grainy as all hell, and a lot of the footage they used was pulled from old news sources anyway. I mean, like the World War II stuff was World War II footage. You didn't restore film back then like you do today. You know, there was no vinegar syndrome doing these restorations. So
not
these were
yet.
bad dubs that were
Yeah,
already 40 years old, put onto a VHS tape and then watched on a CRT dark in my friend's basement.
yeah.
So it lived up to it then. But now, you know, to your point, you put in a collection, you know, you bought the DVD set or whatever that came out and you put it on your 65-inch high def TV. It's not the same experience. It's just
No, and
not.
it's a lot slower because I don't really remember the documentary angle as much. I think you on your initial watches of whether it's the first one or any of the other subsequent ones that came out, you mostly remember like the graphic scenes that you see. I mean, the ones that I always remember are like the electrocution scene or the monkey feast,
Yeah.
that they have. And again, there's some stuff that's obviously mixed in there with it, and at the time we didn't know that. So I
Mhm.
think that that's part of the charm that comes with it now with the internet. And you could look up countless things on Reddit that would be way worse than anything you see on here. But
Without a doubt.
I implore all you guys, if you haven't had a chance to at least check out, the first one at the very least. I do recommend these, depending on how comfortable you are with them. But this is presented as a grim documentary. Faces of Death strings together scenes of accidents, executions, and rituals from around the world, blurring the line between fact and fabrication. With its mix of stage and real footage, it shocked audiences, built a cult following, and earned infamy as one of the most controversial and banned films in horror history. And I think that that's what I love so much about it is it's a time capsule for the video store era that felt so forbidden. Like you were like a depraved individual for renting this. But you know, I remember with a friend of mine, we got together one weekend. His dad wasn't home, and we got together. We watched Faces of Death. We checked out Cannibal Holocaust and Dead Alive, right?
That's a hell of a weekend.
Oh yeah, because it's kind of going back to what you were saying. Like my parents, my dad was a little bit more lenient, but my mom, she was just like did not want radar movies in the house. So again, part of the appeal, you sneak these movies in, you wait till everyone goes to bed to be able to watch them. And this was like pushing the boundaries to the utmost extreme at the time.
Yep. It was.
Now Faces of Death, is this more about exploiting shock value or does it have a deeper warning about voyeurism?
In my opinion, it was just shock value. Now, I think we can look at it now and talk about the voyeuristic aspect, but I think
Hmm.
when it came out and when it was made, it was the Howard Stern of VHS rentals. It was just supposed to be shocking.
I,
Maybe I'm wrong, but that was always my gut feeling on it. I think now we can look back and go, well, why do we want to see this? Why do we want to watch somebody get executed? What does that say about us as a
morbid
society?
curiosity.
Morbid curiosity. But I think when it came out, I mean, the fact that and it wasn't even true that it was banned in 47 countries, but that was the selling point, and they made it so that they could say that
Yeah.
because they knew it would sell tapes, and it did.
Well, and speaking of the cover art, I mean, did that promise more than the film delivered, or did it perfectly capture its shock value?
Good question. I think it promised more than it delivered
Yeah.
because I think had I seen it for the first time as an older person, I would have expected more of a movie, and it's really not.
No.
It is just I mean, the documentary part is so loosely done. It is just a clip show of horrific things.
Yeah.
And that's
That,
okay. That's
that's
okay. But
that's a great way to put it. Now, do you feel like the sequences force the viewer to confront mortality in a way that traditional horror films do not?
I think that could possibly be true. I don't think it did it for me at the time because I just wanted to see what I wasn't supposed to be seeing. But I think that that's a great um, premise is, why do I want to watch this? Should I be watching? Is it disrespectful to watch this? And
Yeah.
only you can answer that. I mean, it's an individual thing. But again, I don't think it was that deep when it came out. I really think that this was marketing genius. How do we sell a bunch of tapes? We market them to a bunch of teenagers who want to watch the most vile thing we can think of.
Now, I will say that I don't think that the cover art lives up to what you get in the actual film, but there is something that you go back and you look at the cover art for those. I mean, it's something that's like I, I don't know. It's very unique. It's a very
So
unique like
iconic.
cover art.
It's so
Yeah.
iconic. I
Yeah.
get younger people in wearing, I'll have them come into the store and they've got a Faces of Death t-shirt on. And I'm like, what an odd movie to wear as a t-shirt, but I like it. It's
It, it,
cool.
wou- it wouldn't be my choice, but I can appreciate it.
But I see a lot of it, oddly enough.
Yeah.
I don't see many The Burning t-shirts of people coming in the store, but I see Faces of Death going to
Carl, we need to start the movement. We're going to be
I'm with you.
pioneering the burning. Now, was there a segment, and we could say this whether it's this one or any of the other ones, that disturbed you the most, or maybe one that made you want to pause or look away?
The monkey brains is tough. that to me, and I don't know why that one gets me the way it does, but that is a really hard thing for me to. It's like there are certain scenes in movies that I know they're coming. I know what happens. I've seen the whole scene multiple
Mhm.
times over, and I still have difficulty getting through it. And that monkey brain scene is just, I don't know what it is, man, but it gets
Is
me every time.
hear me out, because when I went to go back and revisit watching the collection, this is the one movie I haven't seen it in years, right? But this was the one movie that or collection that I went back and when I'm rewatching it, I legitimately got nervous. It's strange. Because you had that connotation with these as being so like you're not supposed to watch them, and it's like, here we are years later, and I'm still I'm still nervous to watch Face of Death, but that just goes to show like the level of impact that this had at such an early age for those of us that were knee deep in the video stores, you
Yep.
know.
Yep.
Um and then which death or shocking act do you think would have been most unsettling to VHS renters back in the video store era?
Well, I mean, I think animal stuff has always been tough for people. That was always the biggest criticism of Cannibal Holocaust
Holocaust.
and
Yep.
Cannibal Ferox. And so animal stuff, a lot of people, myself included, grew up with pets. We've always had pets, and that's kind of a universal thing is you don't fuck with animals.
Yeah.
And that movie fucks with animals the whole time. And I think
Ugh.
that's hard for people morally to get around. You can see a convicted murderer get executed. Well, it's not pleasant
'Cause
to watch, but you can
it's
justify
justified in
it.
some way.
Yeah, exactly. But when you're mutilating an animal or even killing it for food, I mean, I watched what did I watch the other day? Cannibal Ferox again the other day, and a couple of the animal kill scenes, they aren't for pleasure, they're for food, and yet it's still really hard to watch them.
Yeah, there's actually it's funny enough because my buddy Josh and I just did a whole After Dark episode devoted to the cannibal subgenre. So we went through and picked out like 6 essentials that we felt like was a good representation of what this subgenre had to offer. And after I watched all those, I was like, man, I feel like drained. Like I don't want to be out in the jungle anymore. I don't want to see any more animal,
It's tough.
attacks or them being like just cruel to these animals. So, but speaking of a different type of cruelty, and we already talked about this director earlier, and this is a personal favorite, but I figured the best way to end this was with Lucio Fulci's The Beyond.
Can't go wrong, man.
Um, I just adore this movie so much. I'm not even gonna beat around it. It is always a tough conversation for me whether I like this or City of the Living Dead more. Um, And just to give you guys a quick rundown about this film. So, when a young woman inherits a decaying Louisiana hotel, she unknowingly reopens one of the 7 gates of hell. Strange deaths, ghostly apparitions, and nightmarish visions spread as the boundary between the living and the dead collapses. Lucio Fulci's The Beyond weaves surreal dread with bursts of graphic violence, creating a dreamlike descent into pure, unrelenting horror. Um, and we're just going to go through. We're just going to just dive right into this. How does the Beyond explore themes of death, the afterlife, and cosmic punishment?
Wow. I mean, it does all of those things in spades, and it does it in such a confusing way. You think you have a handle on what the gates of hell must mean, and the further you get into the movie, for me anyway, the more I start to second guess what I think
Yep.
I know. And not to get ahead of ourselves, but by the time you get to the end of the movie, I'm rethinking everything I think I know
Yeah.
because it's such a I don't generally get really scared or creeped out by atmosphere, but boy, oh boy, this movie,
Perfection.
dread, just
Oh,
utter dread the whole time. And
there's
then you get left going, oh my God, it doesn't get better.
no, and that's what I love about it. It's such a bleak ending, and you obviously see this in a lot of Lucio Fulci's films. There's no storybook ending. The logic is almost nightmarish. There's the plot kind of takes the backseat to like the nightmare visuals that you get with this. Um, Now, does the film suggest that some horrors are beyond human understanding for us?
Well, yeah, and I think that's the point, is not only are they beyond understanding, but that the film goes out of its way to confuse us. And I think you alluded to it in that comment where when I watch this film, if I've tried to do this before as an experiment, can I follow the timeline and the characters? And I can't. And it does it on purpose. It is so, you skip to different locations, and because you see a lot of characters before and then after, they're kind of hard to recognize. So you're not always sure who you're looking at. And that makes it even more terrifying and even more confusing. To by the time you're two-thirds of the movie in, my nerves are shot. I'm a frazzled mess because I can't figure out what I'm supposed to be paying attention to.
Yeah.
I know what happens. The soundtrack is jarring. Um, it's always foggy outside for some reason, which obscures a lot of the shots. And it's so well done in its mania that by the time you get done, you're kind of tired and
Yeah.
exhausted, worn out by the movie.
In my eyes, and we were talking about this earlier, so this is a perfect movie across the board. I mean, everyone has their definitions of what movies check all the boxes. This has everything for me, especially when it comes to horror. Now, how did you feel like the Beyond's reputation for extreme gore and surreal horror contribute to its cult status on tape?
Well, it's huge because the gore is so well done in this movie. It is so just like Zombie, it's beautiful in its own disgusting way, and you get the Hallmark eyeball grossness
Yep.
multiple times in this movie, if I remember correctly. And then you have the whole. I mean, there's something creepy about old Louisiana anyway. The setting just lends itself to this type of movie. So they did a great job in picking the location
Yeah.
and the set. I mean, that hotel is you couldn't pay me to stay a night in that
Hell
hotel.
no.
I mean, it hits on all marks. It really does. And it's another movie that I wouldn't recommend to someone just getting into the genre, because
No.
I think it would be a little overwhelming, and it is hard to follow.
Yeah.
But I think
Work
that's
your way up to it, right?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Now, what scene disturbed you the most? The tarantula attack, the eye gouging, you know?
Um, I know the tarantula gets a lot of people. I have a pet tarantula,
Oh,
so it doesn't do much
yeah,
for me.
yeah,
I actually kinda like
surprised
them because
to it.
I watch the movie and try and figure out what species it is.
Yeah.
So that one doesn't do. Now I will say I watched the Grindhouse Blu-ray recently.
Okay.
And I think I had only ever seen it on tape and DVD before. So this was my first time. This was maybe a month ago
Mhm.
where I saw it in a new restoration.
Oh, it's stunning.
And it's beautiful.
Mhm.
But I think I liked some of those gore scenes better on tape. Um, Particularly the tarantula scene.
Yeah.
There's something about the grittiness that lends itself to the way that movie is filmed that for me, it's same. And I think you and I probably talked about this before. I will swear up and down that the way to watch Texas Chainsaw Part 1 is on VHS tape. And I think
Absolutely.
Beyond is a contender for that too, even though it is beautiful on these new releases. And I've got the new 6-disc set at the store and I haven't watched one yet. But,
So good.
beautiful, right? But there is something to be said for watching it on an older format.
I
It just lends that extra layer of dread.
I would agree with you on that because there's something about, yes, it's nice to see these films that are pristine, and I think that there's a place for that, but you also have to appreciate where they come from.
Mhm.
And seeing them on especially with VHS, it feels like that is the format that they were meant to be viewed on. Not 4K, crystal clear clarity as much as I can appreciate it in a different sense. But it's like the VHS tapes, that's why I come back. And it's through and through. Why I watch it, like, I have a CRT TV in our bedroom, and I'll throw these on late at night, like, whether it's any Fulci films or The Hills of Eyes or Nightmare on Elm Street. It's just there's something about it that it's almost like a safe blanket, right?
Yeah,
It's what you come back to.
yeah.
Um, I don't know if it would be so much safe with Lucio Fulci, but
Fair enough. Fair
yeah.
enough.
And now, are the scariest moments made more intense because of the dreamlike surreal atmosphere?
Without a doubt. The
Okay.
atmosphere is what I think pushes this movie to the next level. It's a cool story. It's a terrifying story, but again, if you set this somewhere else, there's a griminess. I mean, the hotel obviously is grimy because it's all run down and the
Yep.
plumbing doesn't work and the basement's flooded and it's gross. But there's a griminess to the way the story's told, and there's a sleaziness to it that it just amps up the dread in the whole movie.
Yeah, I would have to say, I mean, we know that this film revolves around surreal, dreamlike nature, but the supernatural elements, do you think those are scarier because they're unexplained or because of the extreme violence?
I think because they're unexplained, because you never fully understand, and the movie does a really good job of again confusing you throughout. What is this book? Well, wait, it was here. Well, now it's
Mhm.
at this bookstore. Well, the bookstore guy's creepy as hell. Does he have something to do with it?
I don't trust anyone in this movie.
No, that's the thing. That's the
Yeah,
great part is every time you go to a new location, you wonder, well, what's this? I mean, that bookstore guy is legit
yeah.
scary. And so it keeps you on your toes and it keeps you guessing the whole time. And like I said, I'm worn out when I watch this movie. It feels like it takes a lot of effort to to keep it together.
Yeah, absolutely. And lastly, I wanted to ask, how does the hotel as a gateway to hell serve as a metaphor for hidden danger or suppressed evil?
It's a great question. I think it's interesting that one of my favorite shots in the movie is that shot when the blueprints of the hotel start to vanish in reverse.
Mhm.
And it's scary because you start to wonder, like, what is the connection to the hotel? And so this is one of seven. Well, what about the other six? Am I in one of the other six? Is
Yeah,
school in one? Is my store one of the? I don't know. And so it just movies that can get away with not telling you everything. If it's done well, it's really impactful, and this movie really nails that.
absolutely. I'm okay with it because this is just, like I said, to me, it's a perfect film. It's what really shakes me to my core. All these years later, it's a film that just like you don't have to ask too many questions. You just kind of accept it for what it is and just how terrifying it is. And it's the type of film that I feel like even back then and now definitely keeps both of us probably up late at night.
Yeah.
Um, and I would, with that being said, that's a wrap for tonight's journey through the forbidden section of horror. So I just want to say thank you so much, Carl, for stopping by after hours video to talk the rarest, most notorious tapes lurking on the video store shelves. And I just wanted to plug real quickly. So obviously, Alive Again is packed with a killer selection of rare VHS horror, stacked with the hardest to find VHS tapes, your new favorites on 4K and Blu-ray. If you're in the Grand Rapids area, be sure to check it out. Carl, before we sign off, is there anything that you want to tell the viewers on like where they can find you, or tell everyone a little bit about the store where they can, find you in the Grand Rapids area?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. It's Alive Again GR. I'm the owner and the only employee, so I'm always the one who's there. I'm always the one who will respond to you if you have questions. I do keep, like Steven said, a pretty curated selection. A couple thousand tapes, couple thousand blues and 4Ks, and then various DVDs and other formats. So if I don't have the movie you're looking for, I have a lot of sources to go out and try and help you find a copy. But more than anything, I love doing this. I love talking. So I love to talk about this stuff, whether it's physical media in general or horror specific. That's what I'm there for. So stop by if you're in the area. Please come by, see me, say hello, talk about your favorite movies, give me some recommendations. One of the best parts about owning the store
Hell yeah.
is all the recommendations I get because I've
Hell-
seen a lot, but there is always something new, and that's what I love is finding a new movie that somebody else told me about.
And just real quickly, I've got a QR code to go check out your website. There we go.
Awesome, look at
So,
you.
yeah, listen, man, I'm prepared. I brought my A game for this.
Good.
So, feel free to swing on by, go check them out on Instagram. I mean, this is just a great way to be able to support physical media as well as being able to go just see it in person. I mean, that's part of the experience. Is why, I mean, you know me, I'm all the way on the east side. I go well out of my way to come out your way,
Me too.
or you supply my fix by mail as well. You've been awesome about that, so I appreciate that on so many levels.
Oh, I'm happy
Uh,
to do it, dude. And thank you for having me on today. This is what I live for, is talking about this stuff. So I'm thrilled to be on here and get to talk with you about these movies. Super fun.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to keep that up real quickly. And just really on the last note, for anything that Alive Again doesn't carry, hold on one sec. So I've got one more code that I just wanted to throw out there for you guys. So, for everyone watching, don't forget you can grab some of these legendary titles as well for your own collection from Valoria Video leading up to Halloween. So, I have my code after hours 10 hours is abbreviated for a special discount, and you can start assembling your marathon of nightmares. So the horrors are out there, from cursed locations to relentless killers, and the VHS shelves are stocked with them all. Gather your tapes, lock your doors, and let After Dark guide your Halloween marathon into the oh my gosh, deepest corners of terror. Thank you guys so much for stopping on by, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care, guys.